So, good morning, everyone. Very nice to see you all on our call this morning. I'm delighted to welcome you to our Wellbeing at Work Conference 2022. We held our first event last year, and I'm so pleased that so many of you have signed up to listen to our fantastic speakers this morning. It's really, really lovely, as ever, to see so many familiar faces at our events, and also so many new ones. So for those of you who don't know too much about Work Avenue, we are the UK's leading employment and business support charity for the community. And since 2006 have been helping people to earn a living to support themselves and their families by providing information, advice, guidance and practical skills which will help them to find a job or to start up or grow their own business. We do this through one-to-one advice meetings and also an array of skills-based workshops and events. Last year, 2021, over 2,000 people accessed our various events and services, and we believe the number will be no different this year, 2022. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Emma May, and I'm Director of Operations and Employment. And what this means is that I head up our team that supports our job-seeking clients into employment, as well as having a bit of a hand in running Work Avenue overall. I'm also delighted to introduce my co-host today, Joanna Sadie, who heads up our business team. Joanna, maybe you can give a wave and say hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
There are various other various others of our Work Avenue colleagues on this call as well today, which is great. Now, if we follow the media at all, we will all be only too aware of how mental health and well-being in the workplace has been growing in importance over the last few years, and quite rightly so. It's clear that the pandemic has only served to emphasize this even further. A year ago, this time last year, we carried out a survey into the impacts of the pandemic on employment and business, and hundreds of people responded to let us know their views. I think the number was close to 500 actually. As well as reporting on a range of factors relating to their financial position or their business, they told us very clearly that more than half of those surveyed had mental health worries that both emanated from their work and impacted on their work as a result of the then prevailing pandemic conditions. 1 year on, and we have repeated the survey to see what, if anything, has changed. Some of you may actually even have responded to that survey. You certainly will have received details about it. In many areas, the results were very encouraging. The jobs market is now very buoyant and the economic outlook is significantly stronger. And this all represents and reflects a greater level of optimism for many, many people. We will testify in Work Avenue that our jobs board is very buoyant, lots of people are finding work, and there's plenty to feel very, very optimistic about at the moment. However, what is interesting is that despite these positive indicators, half the people have told us that employment or business worries are still having a negative impact on their mental health. And this is exactly the same as last year. The challenges are manifold. Some of us struggle to work from home with the issues of loneliness and isolation, and others of us are more fearful about working surrounded by other people whilst the pandemic continues. Some of us have to balance the demands of working life and dependent family members, both young and old. Many people have financial worries and are concerned to find their next role or make a success of their business. We launched Wellbeing at Work, our Wellbeing at Work conference last year because of all of these issues. And I really hope that today will give you all some interesting insights, some guidance and some tips on how to take care of your well-being and mental health whilst you are either finding work, which we are very, very well aware is a job in itself, working for your employer, or indeed if you're working hard to grow and run your own business. We have three fantastic speakers this morning. Elissa Benjamin, who will be talking about imposter syndrome and how to manage it through the power of thought. Rabbi Elchanan Feldman, who will be talking about well-being through the lens of support structures, and Dr. Laura David, whose session is entitled Be Well to Work Well. And you will probably have read about them on our website. There will be a Work Avenue team member on all of the sessions, and we will be fielding any questions that you have to the speakers. The drill is the same as in any session. Do please put your questions in the chats, and we will make sure that we field them and address them to the speaker. Or if you'd like to speak verbally, then do raise your hand through the icon on Zoom, and we will certainly be able to get to you at a convenient moment. Now, finally, at the end of the morning, please do join us and some of our special businesses in our network whose work actually relates to well-being for a Q&A session. I know that in this session, the thoughts and inputs of Sarit Gaffin, Zachava Handler, and Karen Taylor will be invaluable. So I think we're probably ready right now. Well, firstly, does anyone have any questions? Doesn't sound like it, which is great. Joe, I'm going to hand over to you because I think it's probably time for you to introduce Alyssa Benjamin. Joe, you're muted.
2 years in. Good morning, everybody. And a huge welcome from me as well. I am absolutely delighted to welcome Alyssa Benjamin as our first speaker this morning. To give a brief overview, Alyssa is a fully qualified life coach and has qualified through the Coaching Academy. She's been helping people to feel more confident and positive for the past 3 years, and I'm sure she'll go into this in more detail. Previously, Alyssa spent 10 years in corporate marketing for big retailers like Debenhams and House of Fraser. So she, like many of us, has plenty of experience dealing with the daily demands of life, juggling children, work, and trying to achieve a good work-life balance. As Emma has said, please do put any questions in the chat, and Emma or I will facilitate those questions and make sure that we get to as many of them as possible. But I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Alyssa. Alyssa, over to you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining. I thought I'd start by giving you just a quick background on myself, although I think Joanna might have done it a bit. So my name's Elissa. I'm a life coach and I work with people mainly on a one-to-one basis. We focus on what's important in terms of their goals and what they'd like to achieve, but they're struggling to. And today, together, we kind of work towards strategies and break down barriers, help to create a structure, gain some clarity, and become refocused so that they can achieve their ambitions. And these can be really large goals that we break down together. So I've worked with people with ambitions to become partners at law firms, or equally, I've worked with people who are struggling to overcome anxiety and want to be able to start leaving their homes again and resume their lives. Together, we put together a plan that my clients work towards so they can feel positive changes in their lives that they wish for. And my job is just to help them feel more confident and to visualize the steps of their journeys as they achieve their ambitions. I'm not a psychologist, and my focus is not to reflect and analyze backwards about something that's happened, a significant event, or to diagnose them. It's really to look forward to the future, to make sure that they achieve what they want from life rather than wishing and talking about it. So today I've been asked to talk about imposter syndrome and how everyone can help manage those really unhelpful thoughts. Part of coaching is to help people understand and be aware of blind spots, because we can't fix anything unless we first become aware of its existence, and secondly, understand why it is. So to start with, what is imposter syndrome? Have any of you ever had that feeling that you don't belong? Thoughts like, I'm not sure I should be here. Why would anyone listen to me? Why would anyone want to hire me? I'm faking this. I'm a fraud. My opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't count. I'm not good enough. At this point, it may be that you can't get your thoughts together straight with anxiety taking over. And in this scenario, you're not even able to kind of go through a script, and you start disconnecting from your words. You may even become overcome by guilt. You actually are an imposter and feel that you're wasting people's times. And you actually start verbalizing that and saying, I don't think I can do this. Excuse me for wasting your time. What on earth is going on? Well, the first thing to say is that it is a complicated thing to feel. And there is not just one way that it plays out. And I really want to emphasize that. It can manifest itself in multiple different ways, as I started to illustrate above with some of the questions. But where does this sense of being an imposter come from? Imposter syndrome, it's born from an initial sense of self-doubt. It may be just kind of a small kernel of an idea that you're not worthy. But left unchecked, and it grows and grows and grows until you get to the point that you're internally screaming at yourself, what gives you the right to tell these people about this? Imposter syndrome happens when people have anxiety, they're perfectionists or fear of failure. And as a result, this self-doubt grows. We don't think we're good enough to be where we are or to fulfill an expectation that we're desired to. We all have self-doubt from our childhood or from a recent experience that we might have perceived went a certain way. And an internal voice told us that something we did actually happened in a way we weren't expecting it to. We remember that. And then when something similar happens again, that same voice, don't mess this up like last time, comes back into our head. So imposter syndrome, more often than not, presents itself when stepping into a new scenario, a new field, a new environment, or a new challenge that resonates with a previous failure. And when it happens, we completely ignore everything we have achieved in life. We ignore what is unique about us. We ignore all the good that we have done in the world up until now. We devalue what we have seen, what we have done, where we have been. It doesn't matter that you're a Nobel Prize winner, you know nothing. We tell ourselves crazy things. We undermine our experiences as if they're not valid. And it makes us feel as though we are worthless. We say things to ourselves that really don't make any sense. Things that are silly like, yeah, but anyone can do that. That's not special, that's not great or remarkable. We even undermine our expertise. Yeah, but that's easy. Everyone knows that. There's nothing special about what it is I know or what I do. And in that moment, we just feel like an imposter. We beat ourselves up with the internal voice winning. We isolate ourselves. But that feeling of not being good enough is way more common than you might think. Firstly, would everyone mind raising their hand on Zoom if they've ever had this feeling? Right, take a look around. I'm putting my hand up for sure. The times I remember most that was so clearly of when I had imposter syndrome, and I get it still today, but the most clear time to me was when I used to work in corporate marketing and I went back to my job after maternity leave and I had lost all my confidence. I didn't feel like I knew anything and I didn't belong. And after a while, I realized I had knowledge, I had experience, just as I had before I went on the maternity leaves. I just needed to stop this belief cycle. And often people fall into a trap of thinking they're the only ones that think or feel this way. We make the assumption that everyone else has their life all figured out. Everyone else is always confident. I'm the only one who shouldn't be here, and I'm the only one that might get found out. However, everyone feels this too sometimes. This feeling of isolation, in feeling undeserving, but thinking none of our peers feel the same way. It's called pluralistic ignorance, believing we are alone in a feeling of self-doubt. So let's take a look at who imposter syndrome impacts. I'm not a scientist, as I said previously.
Elissa, before we do that, we do have a question. Someone has raised their hand. So I don't know. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but before we just move on, I wonder whether Emma, someone called Emma has raised a question. Emma, could you possibly put your camera on? But do feel free to ask your question now. Emma, did you have a question?
She might have raised her hand for asking for raising her hand. So I think, Alyssa, carry on.
Carry on, Alyssa. I don't think Emma wanted to ask a question after all. No problem.
I promise, guys, there'll be time at the end and we'll go through all your questions. I'm more than happy to. So definitely write them down and hit me with them afterwards. So yeah, who does imposter syndrome impact? I do like a study. So I had a look at a 2020 study that was synthesizing all the previous studies that looked at imposter syndrome. And it found that 16 of the 33 studies looking at gender found women to be more likely to experience it. However, 17 found no difference between women and men. So there may be a higher prevalence in women, but it turns out that anyone can feel like an imposter. Imposter syndrome is highly prevalent in ethnic minorities. And it can also be highly correlated to other mental health issues, including anxiety and depression, although absolutely they do not necessarily need to exist together. And in terms of age, some studies found that increasing in age sees a reduction in the sense of imposter syndrome, and other papers didn't see any inverse correlation between aging and the feeling of imposter syndrome. So some old people care less what people think about them and don't listen to that nagging voice in their head, while others still do. And finally, there is robust literature that describes the harmful association between imposter syndrome and your job performance, your job satisfaction, burnout, among various sort of employee populations. So feeling like an imposter happens a lot at work. Famously, Maya Angelou, one of the most famous authors ever, said after publishing one of her 11 books, I have written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find me out now. I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. Natalie Portman said at the Harvard event in 2015, today I feel much like I did when I came to Harvard Yale as a freshman in 1999. I felt like there must have been some mistake, that I wasn't smart enough to be in the company, and that every time I opened my mouth, I had to prove that I wasn't just a dumb actress. So there you go. You're not alone. Lots of us put our hands up in the room, and even Natalie Portman feels this way. So this should give you some comfort. Next time you walk into a room and feel uncomfortable, take a moment, look around the room and remind yourself that statistically, there will be other people in that room that feels the same way. Not everyone, but there will be other people screaming to themselves, run! But you shouldn't run. So now let's look at what you can do. In the moment when imposter syndrome rears up, we need to build ourselves back up. We need to lift ourselves higher, and we need to reverse the direction of what we're doing to ourselves, to stop the internal voice beating on us and instead raise ourselves up, elevate our status, our worth, and re-establish the value of our own experiences. What you say to yourself can change how you see yourself. It can boost your confidence in a nerve-wracking event, or as we've seen, it can wreck you if you let it. Most of the time, your negative internal dialogue will be completely general. It won't be something really specific like you're useless at astrophysical discussions on the dark matter because your primary interest is black holes. No. And if that was your internal dialogue, it's not likely to tie you in knots. It's going to be something much more general. The voice will say to you something like, you are useless. Nobody will ever want to hire you. You have no expertise that are relevant. Anyone would be more suitable than you. The first thing to say about that voice is it's just wrong. It delivers messages to you in generalizations, using words like all the time, any, everyone, no one. But in our minds deliver generalizations because that's how self-doubt manifests itself and grows. Clearly, you have expertise, you have experience, you have worked, you have met people. Perhaps it's true that we don't have the level of expertise that we would imagine or like compared to someone else. But our internal voice makes the accusation much more overstated than that. And suddenly we haven't got any expertise and we're frauds. The first thing I want everyone to do that has imposter syndrome is to pay close attention to your generalizations. If you were to say, everyone doesn't like me, or everyone in this room or Zoom call as right now hates me, this is a huge generalization. We might walk into a room of 100 people and you might believe that one person in there, and that might not even be true, doesn't like you. What do? Often people with experiencing imposter syndrome will instantly go for that generalization. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. You might be in an interview and trip on your words once. And you say to yourself, you trip on your words all the time. Don't ignore all the questions and answers that you did well and fluently and concisely. We generalize a lot on people, places, and feelings. So first thing to do is mind them. Notice you're saying them to yourself and instead replace them with a more realistic scale. For example, I don't have no experience, but I have this and this and this. So really, I'm just missing one area. And this is much easier to deal with and digest internally. So watch out for the generalizations. Right, what else can we do? Secondly, I would like everyone to make a list for yourself. So if you've got a pen and paper close by, that would be useful at this point. If not, you can start it in your head and we can email these on afterwards for you to have a think about. So these are going to be lists that you will read to yourself again and again, especially when you are aware of imposter syndrome. The first list might feel simple for some, but for some would find it a bit more difficult. And the list is simply to think of things that you are very, very good at. At first, some of you might generalize and think, I'm not good at anything. This is definitely not true. Do you need to be the best in the world? No. Do you even need to be the best in the room? No. Just something that you know you are good at. This list you do not need to share. It is 100% private. So, and you can keep it that way, or if you'd like to share it with someone, you're welcome to. And you don't even need to tell anyone about this list. But I'd like you all to write down things that you are truly good at. And to have at least 15 things on this list, 15, which might sound a lot, but there's lots of things there that you're all good at. 15 things that you're good at. So I'm just going to wait sort of not long, 20 seconds, just to get everyone to write that down, things that they're good at, and if you can start writing off 15 things that you're good at. I can see a lot of people are writing away. This is great work. Love it. See, it's quite easy, isn't it? When we start thinking about things we're good at, we kind of get on a bit of a flow with it. Right, I'm going to cut you off now, but you can go back to your list and add stuff later on, because I've got a second list that I want you to write about, and that is why you deserve recognition. And I cannot give you the answer for this. This has to come from you. Maybe it's because you've been certain places, or you've done certain things, spoken to certain people, or you've read certain books, been on certain courses. I don't know your answer, but I know that you have done and seen things that give you experience and give you the right to be recognized. Even include things that may not seem immediately relevant to the outcome, because they may become relevant. So that's 15 things of why you deserve recognition. Again, this list doesn't need to be shared with anyone. It's totally private. This list is here to remind yourself as why you deserve to be recognized. So it's down to you, why you deserve to be recognized. And I want 15 things on that list as well. I think I might have lost some of you. You're so engrossed in this. It's brilliant to watch. I'm enjoying it a lot. Right, the next list. I promise I'm not going to make you write lists all morning, but the next list I want you to make is a list of your successes. And I'm not talking about winning Olympic medals or anything extreme, but successes for you. So these can be stepping stone successes. So it's not just the final achievement and the final result, but stepping stone successes that happen every day. It could be something small as writing a cover letter or coming on this talk when you didn't feel confident enough. There's no scale. You know what a success is for you. So again, number down 1 to 15 and start scribbling away of 15 things that are successes for you. And like I said, they can be stepping stone successes. So you did small things that got you to the final outcome that you wanted. Or they can be the final outcome. No one else is looking at this list, so anything you want to write down about your successes is totally valid. Don't feel embarrassed about saying it. I promise I won't make you read them out at the end. Right, the next list is to create a list of adversities that you have overcome. And we have all overcome adversities in some way or form. And there is a lot of power in overcoming our adversities. What it does is it proves our worth, because we have the ability to overcome, push through, and come out the other side. So it shows the level of worth we have for ourselves. If we have no worth whatsoever, we wouldn't have the energy to overcome them. So we definitely have a lot of worth. But you did it, and you've done it all, and everything we've written on these lists so far, it's about you. And there's a lot of power in seeing this list. So again, 15 of them, 15 strong, a list of adversities you've overcome. So they might be one or two big things and the rest might be smaller. But especially in this section, I want you to have numbers. I want lots of examples. And the more you can get down, the more we remind ourselves and we can build ourselves up. So don't limit yourself to 15. And the final list that I want you to write is of your internal strengths. So these get overlooked too often, and they're really important. These characteristics are things like determination, understanding, being a good listener, being patient, detail-orientated. This gets neglected often, and we don't focus on them as a source of inspiration and a source of worth. These are the greatest source of worth. So before you go to an interview or a meeting with someone, if imposter syndrome creeps in and you question everything about yourself, look at this list and remind yourself, I'm an excellent listener, I'm a creative thinker, I'm analytical. This list could go on and on. So a long list of your internal strengths, please. Great, I won't be asking you to do any more today, so take a deep breath, you're done. But these 5 lists are the perception of yourself, and so they're unique to you. These are things that you can say, I'm really good at. These are reasons I deserve to get recognized. These are my past successes, and these are adversities that I've overcome. These are my personal strengths. Then watch how differently you feel when you're reminding yourself of why you have worth. A huge part of imposter syndrome is believing the generalization that you are unworthy. A water bottle is empty if you don't fill it up. So we can sit and wish and hope that our water bottle is miraculously filled up. However, we need to be the ones to fill it up. Positive self-reflection is just as important in keeping healthy as it is to drink the water itself. So you need to fill your water bottle up of worth, of reminding yourself who you are. And there's no need to be an Oprah or David Beckham or Obama. You just need to remind yourself of who you are. And who you are is built upon those lists that you've just written for yourself. And you can spend lots of time afterwards or this evening, if I kind of rushed you, so sorry if I rushed some of you. If you don't think you can make a list by yourself or get stuck doing so, then there's nothing wrong with seeking the help of a friend, a colleague, a mentor, a coach, anyone who can help guide you through a process, and someone that you can trust.
Or somebody at Work Avenue if you wanted a one-to-one appointment.
Exactly what Joanna said, exactly. Or someone at Work Avenue. So everything that I've proposed up until now has been focused on you as individuals resolving your own sense of being an imposter. But imposter syndrome attempts to isolate you against yourself, let alone from others. So don't let it. Talking through your fears, anxieties, sense of worth with others will help you get a better perspective and bring you back to your sense of self. Being vulnerable and talking to people about your fear and accepting your failures will help you manage those incorrect thoughts. People who trust you will challenge your internal dialogue and help you set it straight. They will be able to identify your strengths and help you reflect on them. They may even share some of their own insecurities and their own sense of being an imposter, which most likely you will find hard to believe that they feel that way. And part of being a coach is really helping people identify these barriers that are in the way, seeing value and getting over these hurdles to create a plan and a structure and a way forward so that change can be achieved. Perspective is crucial. Yes, work is important. We need to do it to live. I mean, it's the reason we're all here today. However, it's not the route to a truly happy life. There are lots of things that may be your calling. So don't put yourself under added pressure by making this meeting or this interview the biggest of your life. Work hard, be prepared for sure, but don't burden yourself. And if you constantly feel like an imposter in scenarios relating to work, despite having done all the above, and it working temporarily, but not on an ongoing basis, perhaps the work you're doing doesn't play to your strengths. If your environment is constantly making you feel small, but you believe your self-reflections and your lists that you've just written, then perhaps it's time to look for a new environment. Again, ask someone at Work Avenue, ask a coach, speak to someone that you can trust, that you've got time to talk to. But just don't let the imposter syndrome hold you back from trying things. To stretch yourself out of your comfort zone. Pushing ourselves is how we all grow and continue to learn. Trust yourself. As you're learning a new skill and implementing it for the first time, it may feel like you're faking it. Remember, though, that you have other skills that will compensate and help you achieve success with something new. Be open and honest if there's something that you don't know or something new you're trying. And remember that you're not faking it. You're just using the expertise you do have to push the boundaries and make yourself, the company or the field you work in better. Trying something new is not faking it. It's experimenting. And you do it with every situation. You learn from it and make it better each time. When things go wrong, learn to accept them, because failure happens. We embrace it, we take away some lessons learned, and we move on. Everyone fails at some point. And if anyone can't share a failure, they're either probably fibbing or they haven't really challenged themselves to grow as a person. Failures are part of who we are. It is who we are, but it's also about how we respond to those failures. Understand them and what you can take from them, act on them, and grow from them. James Dyson spent 15 years creating 5,126 versions of his dual cycle vacuum cleaner. 5,000 versions in 15 years before he became a success in 1993. Failure is totally acceptable. From those failures, he learned about and iterative development. He built on those designs, philosophies, and hundreds of products followed from them. He is now considered a champion of British design. And all of that was born from his learning from his failures. Imposter syndrome really tells you failure is unacceptable. And that is a complete lie. Failure is fine. It's how we grow. It's what we do with the failure that's the important part. So if you're in an interview and someone asks you whether you know about a particular topic that you've got little understanding of, demonstrate who you are, what you're going to do about it afterwards, rather than beat yourself up, belittle yourself, and crumble. In contrast to overcooking your failures, own your successes. People with imposter syndrome believe themselves to be lucky to have reached their achievements, rather than being talented, having worked hard, and being capable. They believe themselves to be lucky to have duped the crowd instead of owning their achievement. When coaching people, I work with them to see they weren't lucky. It didn't just happen. They made it happen. They have the experience, the expertise, and control, and can do it again. You do not need perfection. You just need to be aware of your roadblocks and overcome what you need to get there. Some people actually find it really useful to create a fact file. There's a lot of confused faces at me looking at me right now. What is a fact file? This is where you store all your positive feedback from others. It's different from your lists, which are your reflection of yourself. You might save a folder in your inbox where you store positive emails from work colleagues or your boss for projects that you have done well on. A friend of mine has written her first book, and she sent a first draft to 7 people to get their honest feedback. And they weren't her friends. All of them, when critiquing it, had some really positive feedback. They found the book gripping. They were staying awake at night to read it. The storyline was unusual, and they loved how well the characters were developed and felt. This information, all this positive feedback, is what she stored in a fact file. So when she was reviewing the negative feedback of paragraphs to tweak, chapters to review, and imposter syndrome crept in, she started to think, my book is rubbish. I'm a terrible writer. This whole book has been a complete waste of time. She stopped, took a breath, and read her fact file. She suppressed that annoying imposter voice that kept going. She finished her second draft and is now talking to agents to deal with publishers. So a fact file is a really positive way to look at what other people have said that you've done really well. And the list is more about things that you are aware that you have done well and what your strengths are. The next thing that I want you to do is to say your name out loud to yourself in a powerful way. There is a lot attached to your name. And imposter syndrome seeks to standardize you, to strip you of your journey and tell you that you can't, that you aren't. Your name is a representation of the journey you have been on from the moment that you were given it until today. For me, I find it gets me into a positive mindset. You're all on mute, so don't feel self-conscious, apart from Joanna, who might feel self-conscious if she says her name very loudly and very powerfully now. But the rest of you, you can shout it. You're all on mute. So to say your name in a really powerful way, I'll try not scream, but for me, I'd say Elissa Benjamin. Elissa Benjamin. Say your name. It's an impact. Oh, I love that, Karen. I could actually see your mouth going and shouting it. I love it. It's an instant, impactful reminder of who you are, where you have been, what you have done, why you deserve this recognition, because you are on this journey. It helps you to reject the imposter. So look in the mirror, say your name, and say it with intention. The intent that you are going to empower yourself and remind yourself of who you are and your journey you've been on. Do that so you don't step into the imposter syndrome hole. So before you go into an interview or an important meeting or someone that you're prepping for, you need to read the list about yourself. These are 15 things I'm very, very good at. These are 15 reasons why I deserve to be recognized. These are 15 successes that I have achieved in the past. These are 15 adversities that I have overcome. These are 15 strengths that I have. Elissa Benjamin. Elissa Benjamin, you are already a success. I can do this. Walk out there and give it your best. Does it mean that your imposter syndrome will be eliminated and never return and all your nerves will disappear? Sadly, no. But what it will do is empower you enough and remind you enough to walk into that room and give it the best shot you can. Then what we do from that is we create an incredible confidence, competence look. It's a bit of a tongue twister. So what do I mean by that? If you have imposter syndrome and you're, scared to meet someone for an interview or deliver a presentation, doing so will give you a little more experience and make you feel a little more competent. It's another adversity you've overcome. That in itself will make you feel more confident. So the next time you do something similar, you feel more confident because you've been more competent because you've done it before, and then the cycle continues. Finally, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to visualize how you will navigate a negative imposter syndrome. When we have imposter syndrome, we are visualizing all the things that could go wrong. We won't know the answer to the question. We won't have the experience they're looking for. We're not experts and others will be. It's actually okay to think about those scenarios. But instead of visualizing and stopping at the visualization of just that one issue, you need the visualization to continue to overcome that scenario. So most people stop at what it is that's going wrong, and then they go back to that beginning and think again, I'm not going to know the answer. I'm not going to know the answer. And that's kind of where the visualization stops. Instead, think about what exactly you will do to overcome what might go wrong. If you visualize the resolution again and again, then that becomes just as real as visualizing the challenge itself. Up until this point, visualizing the challenge and the things that go wrong has been a big contributing factor to imposter syndrome. So we can continually visualize overcoming the challenge, and it starts to eliminate the imposter syndrome. It shows us the way we're going to succeed. Next time you feel this way, to take power of your thoughts, acknowledge them, put them into perspective by simply observing that thought instead of engaging in it can be a really helpful way to take control of your mind. So becoming aware that you're thinking it rather than just let your body run away with the habit of thinking of it. If you don't, then you're going to miss out on opportunities. If you're feeling paralyzed by imposter syndrome, use this talk, use today as a whole, as a turning point to grow and to own positive attributes and experiences. So let me give you a quick recap on what I've spoken about and how we can get that silly inner voice just to pipe down. You're not alone. Other people feel this. Natalie Portman feels it, for goodness sake. And she was Luke Skywalker's mum. Everyone is seeking validation to know they're good enough. Reach out, talk to friends, colleagues, mentors, people at Work Avenue, and share your anxieties about yourself. It's likely they will share self-doubt. And in hearing them, you will know how to dispel them, because you know they are wrong, and you will share and you will understand why. People that admire you and who you admire will reprimand you for thinking the way you think about yourself. Equally, you'll find that when you open up, you suppress that isolating inner dialogue. You will connect with others and you will reconnect with yourself. Also, by taking responsibility, personally reminding yourself of your brilliance and your unique journey through your name. Look out for those generalization words. They create exaggeration and fuel that self-doubt to run away. Create those lists, at least 15 on each, but go to town, you can make them 30. Create a fact file. Your feedback from others that you can refer to when self-doubt creeps in. And finally, visualize not just the challenge that's in your way, but more importantly, visualize how you'll overcome them. I promise you that if you do take the time to do this, that the imposter syndrome will become quieter and weaker, because the truth will be louder. So trust yourself. Believe in yourself, and then you have the best chance of showing whoever you are sat opposite who you really are and what you have to offer them. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for listening and scribbling down your notes like I've asked. For the next part of the session, it's being opened up to Q&A, and I'm happy to answer any questions now. And if anyone else feels a bit self-conscious, you're welcome to give me a call or get in touch for a totally free confidential chat. What I'll do is actually I'll put my details on the chat box if people don't feel comfortable in this forum, do get in touch.
That would be great. Thank you so much, Alyssa. I would also say that there already are some questions on the chat.
Oh,
so I'm going to probably take them in reverse order because that's how I can see them on my screen. So Ketty has asked, I hope that's okay if you're ready to take a couple of questions. Ketty has asked, can you overcome imposter syndrome when you are an elderly person looking for new challenges, bearing in mind that you are already starting from a negative position? Now, I must just, as a little proviso here, I know Ketty and I would never describe her as an elderly person. She's a rather wonderful human being. However, that is her question. So perhaps you'd like to address that.
Sure. At any age, we can definitely address imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome comes from within. So it's all about us changing our thought process about ourselves. And I actually think when you get older, it's in some ways easier to tackle imposter syndrome because you've done more. I'm sure if we sat opposite each other, you could talk to me for hours about things that you've done and things that you know that I'd have no idea about. And I'd love it. So I think it's just about taking the time for some self-reflection of the things you've done. And I think sometimes when we think self-reflection, that term can sound a bit scary and intimidating, but just even writing those lists out for yourself, that is a way to self-reflect and then look back at what it is you're good at. And if it's that you said you want to try something new, I mean, we're never too old to try something new. I like I said, I did over a decade in corporate marketing until I realized it wasn't where my passion was, and thought, right, I'm going to go back, I'm going to requalify and do something totally different. And I can tell you, when I first started off, I thought to myself, am I crazy going back to education and starting again and leaving a job that I sort of developed and got senior in to start again? And I absolutely love it. And I'm so pleased I did it. So you're definitely never too old. Use your wisdom as pearls, definitely is my advice.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, Neil, who was on this call earlier, he had to leave, but he has placed 3 questions in the chat. So I know he will be reviewing the video later on. So it would be great if we could address his questions. And as he said, they probably may apply to other people as well. And his first question is, how do you deal with a situation where everyone in the room has a different opinion to you before you speak, and you are concerned that if you voice this opinion, you will be discredited by the group? How do you manage this feeling and remain true and authentic to yourself?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely can feel tricky if you feel like you're the only one sat there feeling that way. Firstly, you might not actually be the only one sat there feeling that way or with that opinion. It might be that other people in the room who also feel nervous about speaking up haven't voiced that they feel differently to probably the more vocal group that would be talking. So firstly, take a bit of confidence in that thought that actually other people might agree with you. But also that there's nothing wrong with thinking differently from the crowd, and there's nothing wrong with having a different opinion. The important part is really how it's voiced. So I think as long as it's done in a polite way that isn't offensive to anyone, but instead is letting them become aware of your thought process, maybe how you've got there and why you believe in it. And then it gives people time to digest that view. And it's a different perspective. Generally speaking, people aren't angry at a different perspective. They're just maybe angry and offended by the way something's delivered.
Do you also think, Alyssa, do you also think that Zoom hasn't helped the situation? Because on Zoom, there are many people who will really stay quiet and some that will be very vocal. So I don't know, do you think it's affected that situation?
I think Zoom definitely has, because a lot of people will stay quiet. But I think even prior to Zoom, I think, you know what, you can sit in a room full of people and it might be the very confident people that put up their hand and verbalize something, and other people that have thought about their rationale and their reasons, they just sit there quietly. I mean, to be honest, that is what Instagram's about. Lots of people will look at a video or look at a photo, they won't like it and they won't comment about it, but they have seen it. So it's just about how people engage, and some people engage and communicate back and will be the first to raise their hand, the first to write on Instagram, the first to ask a question on a Zoom call. And other people will sit back and digest what's in front of them. And it might actually take them a few days, a week. It might take them a while to think even about what it is that their view is on it, or they've changed their mind having heard 2 sides of the story and they're not even sure where they sit. They might be on the fence about it. So I think Zoom probably hasn't helped, but I think it was there beforehand. And I think, in all honesty, when you're sat with people in an interview or in a meeting with someone and you're just trying to explain to them either a business proposal or an objective or something it is, or about yourself, it's just doing it and making sure that there's a good flow of conversation back and forth and that everyone gets heard, whether that's 2 people in a room or you're sat in a bigger circle.
We had a hand up from Ruth Etzioni. Ruth, are you there? Did you have a question? And if so, do you want to unmute yourself and ask it?
Hi, no, it wasn't a question. And I think, Alyssa said what I was going to say, but I've been in meetings where, sometimes, like you're saying, it does take time to process, to think, to formulate your response. And some people are quicker than others. And I just feel that I have been in a situation where I have said to whoever is chairing that meeting, please, can I come back to you, by whatever time. They may not need the conclusion, if it's an interview or something, and they're not going to make the decision until the Friday, and you had your interview on the Monday and you want to add something, it's okay to say to the chair, can I come back to you on that point? And then come back once you've had a chance to think about it. I think that that's totally acceptable.
You're right, Ruth. It's a great point to make. And I actually think it's a really strong thing to remember, especially if you go to an interview with someone. And sometimes we leave, and we've all done this, you leave and you think, why didn't I say this, this, and this? They were asking me, have I done something? And I couldn't think on the spot that specific example that is totally what they're looking for. And we kind of beat ourselves up and we have that same conversation in our head. And some people just let that conversation play over in their head. And other people, what they think is what Ruth's suggesting, and they take action and they think, do you know what? I'm not going to just let this go. I'm going to email the person, get in touch with them, and in a polite way, maybe thank them for the interview or thank them for their time. And there's nothing wrong with saying, and you know, as I've had time to process it, I've just thought as well, I have done X, Y, and Z, or I've looked into what you were saying and I know this information, or whatever it is that you're thinking to yourself afterwards. I wish I had said, I wish I'd communicated, or I've now had time to process it and this is actually my thought on something. So there's nothing wrong. No one gets offended receiving a polite email thanking them for their time and giving them a little bit more information. I actually think it does the opposite. And sometimes you think, wow, this person is really keen, and they don't just sit back and kind of think, well, that's happened, what can I do? But they think, do you know what, how can I change it? How can I improve on a meeting that just happened? Or how can I improve on an interview that just happened? And let them know everything I've got to offer. As long as you don't drive them crazy and bombard them with emails.
Exactly. There is another question from Neil. I'm conscious that he will want to have some answers to his questions. And he says, if you find yourself waffling, if you are in a room with people who are talking about a subject that you have knowledge on, but you are not an expert, how do you pull yourself back and just listen to the conversation and absorb yourself in the experience that you do belong in the conversation? Very different question, actually.
That is a very different question. I think there's nothing wrong with liking to participate. I think if you're aware that you waffle sometimes, as is put it, or that you sometimes talk too much, then it's just some self-awareness. So maybe on the pad that you're taking in to write your notes, on the top of it, you might sort of do a box with a line through it, or you might as a picture diagram if you're someone that's quite visual, or you might write in words, stop talking, or think, or absorb, something that when you look down to write your notes and write what's going on in front of you, it reminds you in that moment to take a moment and to stop and acknowledge what other people are saying. And if someone's saying something that you think, I want to talk about that, and I agree with it or I disagree with it, but I've just spoken a minute ago, also write down your question, write down your thought, let 3, 4, however many people talk, let the conversation flow a bit further and engage a bit more, because you might then have a totally different view or opinion to add 10 minutes later. So I think it's doing whatever you need, and we all know ourselves best. Some people need to write the word pause down. They speak too quickly and they rush through. So they need to write pause or slow down or take a breath. Other people might need to say stop talking or listen, stop doodling, whatever it is that you know you do that you're trying to stop. It's just to become more aware of it. There's a study that if you do something every day, and they say if you try and think about it whilst you're brushing your teeth every day, you start to see the difference. So if there was something that you really wanted to try and change, some people, what they do is they leave a post-it note on their mirror, their bathroom mirror. And when they're brushing their teeth every day, they visualize what it is that they're trying to achieve. And it reminds them to do it. It reminds them to think about what it is they want to think about, rather than they get into bed at night and think, oh, I totally forgot that. And now the day is done. I need to remember tomorrow. they put it on their bathroom mirror, or they set an alarm. So I think in a meeting, if you waffle too much, write it down somewhere to stop yourself and bring yourself back in and rein yourself in from it.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Now looks like we have time for one final question, and there is one more on the chat that I can see. And it's quite a good one to close with, I think, bearing in mind what we've been talking about. If you suddenly get imposter syndrome feeling, how is the best way to immediately snap yourself out of this feeling? So I guess the question is being asked if you're out in public somewhere, or you're in the middle of a situation, as opposed to an ongoing building experience.
I think the best way to deal with it is something I said towards the end, is to observe the thought in your head. So if you are out and you think you're saying to yourself, I'm an idiot, what am I doing in this room of people that know everything? Why am I here? Then to kind of try to stop yourself, think of that thought, that and whatever it is. So if it was the word idiot, or if it was the word, I don't know, inexperience, or whatever it is that you're thinking about in that moment, take a breath. It's okay to stay quiet for a minute and try and just remind yourself of a few things that prove the opposite of what you're thinking. So it might be one of these lists that you go back to, that you just think to yourself, I am capable, I'm organized, I'm a good listener. If it's that you're doubting yourself and what you've got to offer someone, you might start to think, what did I write down in that list? Okay, do you know what? I'm really good at numbers. I'm great at thinking of listening to someone else's opinion. It's not me. That might be, if you've got an imposter syndrome, one of the benefits is you're quite good at listening generally, because you don't trust your own view. So it's a positive from imposter syndrome. So I think it's about trying to be more and more aware of your own thoughts. Stop the thought. Don't take the luxury of letting your brain tell itself that habit that it's been telling itself again and again. And instead combat it with things that you've written down today. Think of what it is that your strength is, or what you've overcome, or what you're successful at, or what you've got experience in, and remind your brain, because that's what it is. It's just not letting your brain run away with itself. It's reminding your brain that that's not true. And I know it's not true because of this, 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 and this. And then go for it.
Brilliant. And 30 seconds on the final question about Instagram.
Yes.
You should be marketing yourself on Insta, marketing your skills on Insta and being out there on Insta. Shulamit has asked this, but imposter syndrome, and she calls it comparisonitis, and self-judgment come up every time you go there, keeping yourself from stopping, you're comparing yourself to other people on that platform where everyone seems so polished and way ahead of you, more tech savvy, more followers. It's very, very daunting. How do you cope with that when you see it there time and time again?
So Instagram isn't real. That's not anyone's real life. When you see someone post a beautiful picture of them and their husband or wife and smiling children, they've probably taken about 15 shots to get there. When they take a picture of this beautiful dinner they've made sure that they've styled the image and they've made it look good. It's not someone's real life all the time. Instagram is a snapshot of their best moment. And that is what it's about. It's aspirational, and there's nothing wrong with something that's aspirational, but it's not their real life all the time. So I think people look at Instagram and think, oh, this person, they've got it so good. They know exactly what they're doing. Look how perfect they look. Look how wonderful their life looks. Look how amazing their holiday looks. I mean, a friend of mine posted a great holiday snap. She came back and told me for over half the holiday it rained. We wouldn't know that on Instagram. So it's not real. And so take some comfort in the fact that it's not their real life all the time. It is a snapshot of their best moment in that day, week, or month, however, whenever it is they're posting.
That's brilliant. Oh, sorry, I'm going to have to cut you short, only because we are right at the, in fact, we have technically exceeded.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it has been an absolute, I mean, you know, yes, Yasmin asked a question which Joe has responded to, which is great. Alyssa, this has been a cracking way to start our morning this morning. It has been, you know, I'm speaking for myself, and I hope I'm speaking for everyone else on the call, to say that I have been absolutely, you know, hanging on every word you have said this morning. It has been absolutely inspirational, interesting, humorous, and getting us to do bits throughout have really, really helped as well. I certainly, you know, did everything you asked me to do, and it was so helpful as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Your details are again on the chat, which is great. Alyssa has a website, so you're all welcome to find her at her website. We're going to take, Alyssa, please feel free to join us for the rest of the morning if you have time to. Fully appreciate you're an extremely busy person, however. We're going to take a short break, and at 22:11, we will be ready to start our next session. So nobody shut down your link. Everyone keep your link open. I know I'm going to go and get a coffee, and maybe other people also want to go and get refreshments, and we'll see you back here at 22:11. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you.